Hi everyone, welcome back to 6 Feet Apart. Today, our visual arts program manager, Kristen Mills, has interviewed Glenn Goldberg, a longtime visiting artist here at VSC. And she said that she had a really fabulous conversation with him and that he's a big concept thinker and a painter. Here, Kristen, take it away.
I know you more than you know me.
I actually read a little bit about you as well, but yeah, I mean, I've been going up to VSC for, I mean, honestly, it's probably somewhere in the 25, 30 year.
So you were a part of the kind of in the beginning then when visiting artists would come and stay for a chunk of time. So they were like kind of part of the residency as opposed to coming in and out of the residency.
Exactly. Initially, it was for the whole summer, and then it got shortened. And then how frequently people come, which made a lot of sense, started to get sort of lengthened, right? But being there for a while and having meals together and getting to know people more, some of that sort of, the roles and the hierarchy of relationships starts to disappear, which is
kind of
real
cool. I've seen your work, some of it in person, but most of it I've seen online, and the advantage to that is nothing. There's no advantage to that. I do prefer to see, especially when it's drawings and paintings, in person.
Yeah.
But it's fascinating. I really enjoyed the lecture in 2016. I listened to it a couple times just to kind of soak in some of the things that you were saying. The idea of, as artists, that we're gifting ourselves with trying something new. And the other one was, I had them written on Post-it notes here. And this, I think, is where you kind of talk about your work in a number of different ways, but it really is like a double entendre, but that nothing can be removed, we can't unknow, and we can't undo.
Right.
I feel like both of those are really good pieces of information to think about how we live life, but also you specifically in your work.
Well, what I get from those two ideas, if I were to rethink them, is one, inevitable experimental aspect of life, right? So no matter how willful or controlling a person might be, it will always be intruded upon, and we must be responsive to that. So that, to me, is the design of everyone's life. That one can't avoid. But so then on top of that, maybe that opens up, these trades that we make. For a long time, I've thought that to a degree we write out our own bill as if we're, in the restaurant of life, and we get a chance to write out what we're going to pay for in essence, or, what we're going to consume, right? So the experimental aspect of it, like you said, of trying something new, seeing if I could talk to a person that maybe I'm not inclined towards, seeing if I could progress. The work is just a symptom of that, but what will I entertain? Who will I entertain? And how small will I keep my life, or will I allow it to expand, where not only do I redefine my identities, right, in plural, but then people who know me, might say, "Whoa, wow, what's going on?" Or that doesn't make sense. Like the disruptive quality that happens when you see somebody who has allowed themselves to change and has that courage,
Right.
And for me, I've always been excited by somebody who, as an artist, who I don't really know what they're going to share with us next, right? That's exciting.
Yeah, totally.
And then I don't know where they're going to end up, but they're going to, someone who you could kind of imagine. I mean, VSC's again, not to harp on VSC, but that's a place where a lot of people pass through. There's people who, not just the residents or whatever the title is, but people work there. They're usually, back in the day, it was like you spend a year or two at VSC and it's transitional and you don't know where you're heading next,
Absolutely, yeah.
So that whole idea is an exciting one, where I could hear from someone and they could tell me they're in another country, they've gotten married, they're doing a whole other different kind of work than art. I find that super exciting, where someone has the courage and the openness to, one, be interested in change, and then two, the ability to make it. So that's the umbrella that I've tried to function in with my work, and it continues, in terms of training, and then how I need to move, right? Like I was always and still am extremely grateful for the way I was taught. But
Yeah.
then it started to rear its, sort of limitation kind of components where I'm like, ooh, I need to, in a way, disobey,
Uh-huh.
misbehave, whatever, do inappropriate things in relationship to the doctrine of my education,
I
right?
like that. I like that you put that together. Yeah.
Yeah, and on my end, it was never a betrayal or an act of disrespect. It was sort of an act of adjustment and departure, So that's all that. So
Mm.
in a nutshell, the first thing that you brought up, I guess I would respond, yes, indeed, the experimental component of a life lived, as well as that being symptomatic in how an artist moves, right? And I guess I'm on that side of it, although historically I'm located mostly, because that is mostly what I've done, although that's changed quite a bit recently, as a painter, but
Yep.
I say, okay, fine, you can call me that. It's a funny thing, words are so directional. So to call someone a painter with that term comes a whole lot of understandings and misunderstandings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I like to think that language is really clunky, which is also kind of why I like language, you know?
Yeah, it's clunky and has resonance, but it's, inaccurate and
Mhm.
approximate, right?
Right,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah.
So then the second thing was, oh
Oh,
yeah, like actions throughout a life simply accumulate, right? And
right,
they can't be erased,
right.
you know, regardless of the fact that most of us don't know most of each other's history. But I love that idea because I guess at its best, its effect would be that we're more mindful
Mhm.
and continue to attempt to be simplistic about it, do better,
Mhm.
be more empathetic, be more giving, appreciate what we have. A whole list of things that would come with the idea of behavior is not capable of being erased, right?
Right, right.
Same on your end. It's like, okay, you don't know me, I don't know you. If I asked 15 people who have known Kristen Mills for a certain amount of time, I'd be able to accumulate some reasonable sense of you, by accumulating that data, and that's a function of your they might interpret it unfairly, but
Yes.
you know, but still, there's an accumulation of acts and statements and examples that I guess I find that to be an exciting way to look at
Mhm.
life, and bringing it back to the work. At a certain point, I realized that when I was younger, I was making work almost like I was in a boxing ring every day.
Mhm.
There'd be a lot of changes on a lot of work, and things would be negated and painted out and painted in and painted out and painted in. And it was a very sort of athletic kind of thing, like in, out, no move, as if I'm moving furniture all day long. And then that kind of changed where things slowed down
Yeah.
and things were more deliberate. But most importantly, back to that idea, things were accepted when I made a move, as opposed to open to be, negated, right? So,
Right.
so it slowed me down. It made me more responsible for the things I did.
Right.
Hopefully, not overly self-conscious or,
Right.
you know, stiff or anything. But it's similar to waiting to speak, even though I'm gabbing away right now. But that pause where somebody is thinking and cares about what they're going to say and how they're going to say it, to try to get it located in as correct, so to speak, zone as you can. So I think I got the idea actually from changing the way I work, rather than having the idea first and then changing the way I work. I realized at a certain point, like, I'm not getting rid of things anymore. It's just a matter of accumulation. And I realized, like, that's the way a life is. It's simply a series of things that
Yeah.
add up to whatever we might be right now. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I do like that idea.
Yeah.
I like ideas that I don't feel like I could take credit for. They're just there, and it's like I notice it. Like, oh
Yeah.
wow, life is. life is just about, trying to be conscious of better behavior, I guess is what I would say.
I hope so. I hope so. I think that's why I like that, because I feel like it's very optimistic and hopeful, and it even seems manageable and doable. And that's, I think, what's hopeful about it.
Yeah, it's a private kind of thing that I think a lot of us live with, which is, the self-assessment and
Hmm.
trying to find that balance where you're not beating yourself up. You are taking responsibility for how your behavior affects other people
Right.
and trying to adjust it.
I think
You
that's
know,
why it feels doable. Like, yes,
yeah,
as participating adults in the world, we can do that for ourselves and for each other, and in our work, if we want to honor our work in that same way. I love that.
yeah. I was reading this thing. Someone posted something. It was like about 5 to 8 things that Mother Teresa said, right?
Oh, yeah.
And 1 or 2 of them basically said, essentially, if your acts are not noticed, continue doing them anyway. It
Right.
was a list of things like, basically, if you're being kind but nobody sees it, continue to be kind.
Yeah.
Things that really had to do with a lot of our experience where we're negotiating, I
Yeah.
guess I would say, whether we're seen, right? Whether our actions are tangible to
Hmm.
others, whether there's a spotlight on them, whether we get awards or rewards for
Right.
them. Always struggling with that, because I guess, in my opinion, the models that we're given are not so great. You know, Measurability, tangibility,
Right.
right? What's your resume? Prove to me,
Hmm.
so that
Right.
can quickly assess your value.
Right.
Value structures and systems that lead us astray, I guess I would say. Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah. But uh, it's not a complimentary thing, but you also wrote about it or talked about it as if it wasn't a negative thing. But it was a professor of yours at one point in time that said something about, I can see that you're painting, but you're not making art yet, or something like that. When did you, because I know that's a process to go through, to say, no, but this is art versus this looks like art. And when did you maybe start to see that in your work? And then even with your own students, or if that comes up, how do you talk to them about the difference between making work that looks like art versus work that is art?
I guess at that point, which was, decades ago, I was at a point where I was, I guess, learning my lessons well and really, really into making work, and
Hmm.
had great teachers. And then, there was a woman named Gretna Campbell, who, a wonderful woman, and she and Ruth Miller, 2 women, were probably my most important teachers. And so Gretna was basically saying, sort of putting through my head, which I couldn't quite deal with, but
Yeah.
like, now you need to essentially figure out, or begin to try to figure out, what it is you want to do and what you want to say, as
Right.
opposed to living underneath other people's ideas. That was the gist of it. It took me a long time to understand that it wasn't so much about, how I put together a painting or something. It had to do with what was the MO, what exactly was I after,
Right. Yeah.
beyond drawing in color, which were most of the things that were being discussed. And then, but over the years, I think that, for me, that idea of whether it's art or not, has become less important. I mean, I guess it's art because an artist is doing it, and we could talk about how sophisticated it is, where it comes from, how academic it is,
Hmm.
what your reading has been, who you've looked at. We can go down that long list, but let's try to figure out the work that we need to do, and the things that we need to make, the people that we need to working with. So, I mean, it's interesting. I teach at what I feel is a great place, Queens College in CUNY. Great because of the people that are there, right? Like any place, and the demographic of the students, and
Yeah.
so questions about, for me at least, where art comes from, what you need, like what you need to feel like you have an art license, almost like a driver's license.
Yeah.
What's required? like, which I think is a big, great question. It's like, what do we really believe are the requirements for someone to be an artist? Do we really believe that people need to know, all these things? Like I'm interested in what could we bypass, not as an avoidance, but as something that could just be getting in the way of us getting closer to a center, and that would provide mutual trust, mutual respect, truthfulness in a way. The cat and mouse thing of like, well, I walk into your studio and I sort of have the ability, which right at the onset to me is presumptuous. I have the ability to sort of, evaluate, whether what you're doing is considered worthy art or not,
Yeah.
I mean, it's a very tricky game to play, and it could hurt a lot of spirits, make people lose even more confidence than they're already trying to build it up. It can be a brutal thing to be, in a sense. What I gather from what you were saying is there's an intangibility about it, and there's also a coyness, and there can actually be a cruelty in it that may not even be intentional. Those kinds of visits where someone kind of leaves you like, some quote important person leaves you like holding the bag, and you're like, Jesus, the next 10 years, figuring out, what color is or something. So back to the question, I guess I feel like we all need to help each other figure out what we need to do, what we need to bring in the world. And I think art is as much the vehicle as it is the thing that gets in the way. Like, is this art worthy? My question is, was it worth doing? Regardless of the results. So many problems we all live with, like we're so result oriented and we're so reward oriented. So if the results look clear and confident and formidable and consistent,
yes,
and the world rewards it, someone feels empowered, perhaps. Look at them as like a power zone. Like, how do I get there and be that clear and that muscular and that successful and that much of an authority and speak with that kind of razor sharp conviction? I'm like, whoa, like, if that's working for you, absolutely wonderful. But I happily will live a life of questions and confusion, and then actions and responses that will follow, which hopefully have their clarity, but
yes.
Yet not certainty.
Absolutely.
It's a big conversation, right?
I know, but I like how you're attacking it.
Yeah, we have to stop the perpetuating, in our community, right? What I would say is corporate examples, really. Like, it's analogous to elevating oneself in a corporate structure that is in and of itself not meaningful. I'm not like anyone who's successful as that's all ridiculous as well. But we've got to be mindful of what we're after, right? So making art, you get up in the morning, what do you want to do? To me, that's the question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to make something? Do you want to make something different?
Mm-hmm.
Will you wait, and not have something in your pocket to be proud of, and it's unformed? How long will you wait? Will you embarrass yourself? Will you be vulnerable?
Yeah.
Like, to me, that's a lifelong process. Like, I've always played some music, but I've always been sort of quiet and private about it, and definitely singing.
Yeah.
So every now and then I'll make a song and sing a song, and I'll shoot it out to just a handful of people, which to me is like a big act of bravery, even though whatever, you just, it's nice. You're sharing a song with some friends or something.
I think it's brave. I agree with you. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Or acting, not out of like, I want to be a big Hollywood star, but to me, acting has always been compelling and a little frightening.
Mm-hmm.
So I've done a little bit of it, and it's all also sort of privatized and protected. But anytime I enter into areas of trying to speak, like even this, I feel like I'm rambling. I'm trying to let things out.
Yeah.
It's not studied.
You're trying to not self-edit, just like let it go. Yeah.
And it's as dumb as it is smart. Do you know, I feel like I'm I love my dumbness, you know. You know what I mean? And when I have something where I could say, "Whoa, that wasn't bad," you know, okay, that's cool too. It might be more important
Yeah.
than the other side of that coin, you
Yeah.
know, like that it's an area of great possibility. I've always thought, I'll leave the person nameless, but there was a person that I knew that, which I didn't know, apparently didn't have a high opinion of my intelligence, which is fair enough, you know. Okay, I get it, you know. I live with it every day, but
Oh my God.
I gave a lecture, you know, and it was funny. It was just humans being humans. So after the lecture, this person came up to me and said, "Hey, Glenn, I really enjoyed your lecture. You know, I didn't know you were that smart, you know." And, you know, it was like a simultaneous like acknowledgement, but also like, okay, you know,
Oh my
uh,
God.
sort of pause like, thank you, you know. But then I realized, wow, it's not a bad thing for that room, that kind of space, to want to understand how little we know, and two, for others to think you may not know that much, because then they give you space and room,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
maybe through disrespect or, you know, whatever, lack of interest,
Right.
but space to form is the thing, and paying attention is the thing. Yeah, whatever. Where and how will we contribute to this godforsaken situation we're all in? You know, that becomes the question,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not visible. It is. It's
No.
crazy. It's frightening. It's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much carnage going on, not just deaths but spirits, and it's
Yeah.
quite huge. It's enormous.
Yeah.
Um,
During this time, are you being productive in making, or is there anything that's on pause for you? Or are you working through it kind of thing, or?
I've been doing some things on paper, collaging and drawing,
Oh,
but
good.
really I've been writing more stories than doing anything else, because I've always written a bit,
Okay.
and you know, maybe in a year I would write 2 short stories. So I've been on a tear of writing and trying to write. So I've
That's cool.
written a lot of stories and playing some music. I brought some guitars home, and so then recently I'm in the middle, which got shut down unfortunately, of a project with a colleague from Queens College, a woman named Chloe Bass. We were in the middle of making a book together down at Lafayette College,
Okay.
because there's this place, the Experimental Printmaking Institute,
Hmm.
run by a great person named Pedro Barbado. He's got an extensive printmaking background, amongst other things. He's got a lot of things to him, but so we were collaborating, and students were helping us, and it's a very ambitious project. So that's sort of sitting there. And then in terms of shows, something possibly in Berlin and things, but kind of quiet and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, fine, you know, sort of
Yeah.
moving, but slowly, you know, with some space around it. I guess I'm built where I can't have too much. I mean, I have a ton, as everyone does, going on, but psychically, I guess
Yeah.
I can't fracture it too much.
Actually, this is kind of a very maybe silly question, but
Yeah.
you talk about being interested in like shaker furniture or shaker lifestyle, maybe. I'm curious about that. When I think of shakers, I think it's very utilitarian.
Right.
And then when I think of your work, I don't think of it as utilitarian. I think of it as there's an aesthetic quality. I want to look at it. I want to enjoy it. And with shaker furniture or their lifestyle, the way of thinking about objects, I feel like it doesn't really matter if you look at, yes, I guess they care if you look at it, but it's really for its function and that's it. So what's that connection for you?
For me, the way things get made and built, I feel like none of this I can prove, of course, but I feel like they're high level respect and awareness of, I guess I would call it anonymous form, maybe. So in other words, the maker is not important.
Uh-huh.
What got made is important, right? So that's a big thing for me. I mean, which I haven't gotten there, and I don't know if I ever will. But the idea that I want to bring certain things into the world, but I want to disappear,
Yeah.
is not what I'm doing, because the things that I make have too much whatever of my flavor and
Right.
my history and all that, which is privately a little bit, I guess I would say, tormenting, but in a minor way. It's like, but so if I look at, without getting into, the fact that Shakers sort of designed their own, extinction, right, in terms of their
Right.
practice of celibacy, etc.
Yeah.
But if I look at devotion and religion and questions of God, and most importantly, deference, let's not even plug it into a God or a religion, but deference. So basically there's dignity. Okay, it's a chest of drawers, but to me, their chest of drawers or their tables have no embellishment. But they have complete respect for wood and for form and for language and for scale. That does go unnoticed, because at the end of the day, to most people, it's just a simple set of drawers. But to me, it's impeccable, and it has a lot of qualities that, although I'm not living my life that way, but that I feel are aspirational, that are good landmarks as someone who brings things into the world to be aware of, similar to all sorts of things that have utility, that are maybe have a little bit more snap, like ceramics or
Right.
fabrics or things. And I get why you're bringing up the shaker thing, because those are a little bit bland, one could say. I wouldn't, but I
Right.
could see, like,
Yeah.
come on, Glenn, it's like a pine table, what I mean? Like, yeah, it is just a pine table to you, but I'm like, wow, that's like perfect, That's like made by a human who has no interest in taking credit for it. That's kind of beautiful. So those are the reasons why, the whole, that's a huge categorical thing that we've all dealt with, art and craft, and
Right.
things that have utility and things that don't. And the idea is that art doesn't have such sort of intelligible, mundane purpose with a very high level. I mean, I don't know. If we were to live for, 1,000 years, would we look at our period as an incredible renaissance, or would you
Right.
look at it as the dark ages of materiality and, narcissism? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I'm okay with saying, yeah, we're doing the best we can, but the climate is I don't mean it literally in an ecological sense, but our climate is problematic. So I'll look at, again, someone weaving a blanket. To me, it's like incorporates generations of history, a whole zone of functioning that the lives we live here at the opposite end of the spectrum, as if on one end is some big party of affluence and, style and bravado that is understood as truly has pure intentions and lofty ideals. And
Right.
I just quietly scratch my head and go, oh, oh, and then I can go to whatever, like, look at that bowl. I mean, it's interesting to look at a bowl, right? Like this, like a Chinese bowl, like a celadon bowl, and naturally formed, respectful, I don't mean this completely, but we've kind of lost our way. That's sort of what we're looking at now. So as an artist, I guess, without looking to create, unnecessary static and conflict, I think we all need, it behooves us all to take a look at what we've signed up for. I mean, I keep going back to that, but it just feels like that's our life's work. And certainly now that's front and center. It's like, okay, so basically where and how do you give, and where and how do you help? Even if it's just in terms of your interactions with other people, it doesn't have to be material, because not everyone has that. But
Right.
so there are objects in the world made by people and civilizations that I say, and the Shaker furniture is something like that. I say thank you for bringing that in the world. It's just so purely and wonderfully and caringly and efficiently made and designed, and it's helpful. how a draw is made and how it pulls out of a chest. If you have a chest in your house, that becomes meaningful. You know, you're probably opening that every day. And it contributes beyond that for some of us.
Yes.
You know, this sort of regalness, or it's, in a way, it's piousness. It feels like, you know, it feels like it's of God. Let's be more godly, you know? I mean, and I'm not embarrassed to say that. It's like, we need to look in the mirror and we need to be leaders in a sense of you know, spreading what's needed, right? Again, as opposed to isolated self-aggrandizement, you know, things like that.
Right.
So that's a good conversation, I think, you know, and, you know, there's no question. I wouldn't say that I'm a great example, but I feel like I struggle with it.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to have that elephant be in the room,
Right.
you know, when we're maybe unconsciously being hypocritical or, you know,
Yeah.
like it's tender to point that out to each other, but I guess there are ways, you know, like I said, sometimes it's just like being in the room and being silent and just the look on someone's face or the way they're, you know, receiving things that's helpful, where I go, oh, wow, I feel something about what you're thinking and what your energy is. And I thank you for that, because you're making me dial in a little bit better.
Yeah.
So listen, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Kristen. That was great. And here's a great little video clip from Kate Laster. She was here in February of 2020. She did a little video clip for us of explorations of her notebooks, and it's really fabulous. Here we go. Check out our website on Virtual VSC, where we have a featured interview with Kate Laster, as well as a whole slew of our wonderful past alumni here at VSC. Perfect. And now for your favorite segment on 6 Feet Apart, Daniel Z's, my friend and coworker and roommate, is out in the field. Let's see what he's doing.
Summertime.
Perfect. Thanks for tuning in, everyone, to 6 Feet Apart, VSC's virtual talk show. We're so happy to still have you here. We're still happy to still be here. And see you next week. Bye, everyone.